Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us. Team Mosso at the1916company.com. It is in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any of our watches. Reach out to Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase and pricing. So today we've got one for the old guard. There's been a lot of change at Bremont in the last year or so. So let's talk about one watch from their classic era. Of course, Nick and Giles English founding the company in the 2000s. Their goal to bring as much watchmaking as possible back to Britain, and always with an aviation emphasis. The watches expressed their enthusiasm for machinery, some on the sea, above the sea, and on the road. This ALT1-C is very much from their Pilots series of chronographs. And it could also be imagined as a performance chronograph for people who like boats or cars. So this is one, like I said, for the old guard with all of the traits like the triptych case, chronometer certification, and British manufacture that a lot of folks have traditionally associated with the brand. 43 millimeters in diameter in stainless steel. The watch measures 16.5 millimeters thick and from lug tip to lug tip. 49.8 millimeters with a 22 millimeter spacing between the lugs. We're going to throw this watch on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference. Triptych was a couple of different things. The separation of the lugs in the mid case, and oftentimes a differential finish of the mid case from the lug profile. But in terms of ergonomics, it wears fairly true to its size. I'd say it's a 43 millimeter complication. It's got a chunkiness to it. There's definitely some height above the wrist, and because it is sheer in profile, it's probably going to get hung up on most cuffs, but it's a instrument intended watch. The visibility and the size are features and not bugs. I recommend this watch for a wrist no smaller than mine. As you can really see, it fills out my wrist, and that's particularly evident down the barrel and over the top, which does sort of exaggerate the width of the watch. It looks a little bit too big. This is the definitive angle. Taking a look at the strap, very substantial. A lot of leather here. It's thick cut. You can see the sheer cut side, lacquered for cleanliness. Medium brown calfskin with a contrasting stitch, very aviation style. There's some bolstering or stuffing to give it volume on the underside. Calfskin, we have Bremont's old propeller logo, and then we have a buckle that includes a combination of polish and satin. And you can see it's a buckle with an elevated bridge, so that the strap mostly sits inside rather than underneath the buckle when it's on your wrist to avoid stacking up and adding a lot of thickness. Okay, triptych, what does it mean? Well, it means that you have this particular case shape where everything is basically tripartite, and the two main components are the one bearing the lugs and then the inner vessel bearing the movement and the dial. So you can see how the lugs are set out separate from the mid-case, and they have kind of a sculptural wraparound that takes the mid-case profile and then wraps it around the edge. Most of this is in satin finish. You can see the mid-case is a little bit glossier. This is a DLC coating on steel designed to be very scratch resistant. It's not impervious to scratches, but it is fairly resilient. The entire case is surface hardened, and if you're talking about just a micron or two from the surface, it's about 2,000 Vickers, which is exceptional, but in combination with the steel underneath it, it is harder than conventional 316 or 904L steel, but it is not 2,000 Vickers in combination. It's more like 300, 400 Vickers. So very resistant to scratches and swirls, though perhaps not as resistant to actual dents, things that hit with a hard point of pressure. Taking a look all the way around, you can see the the Bremont propeller logo. These two went great guns at each other, Bremont and Breitling, for a long time, competing for the aviation enthusiast's heart. Bremont now moving a little bit away from that, and Breitling too. Breitling's new logo doesn't have wings, and Bremont's new logo doesn't have a propeller. But back in the day, the propeller on the Bremont crown was indicative of the brothers' enthusiasm for aviation, their father's enthusiasm for aviation, also the fact that once upon a time they allegedly emergency landed in the field of a French farmer, and Bremont was his name, so it's a bit of a tribute name. The correct pronunciation is Bremont, although if you wanted to go back to the original farmer, it would have been Bremont. So either way is appropriate. Now, it is a push-down crown here. This is not a screw-down, but the watch is 100-meter rated, and you can see on the reverse side 10 ATM. The bezel's fairly flat. You can see it has several facets, so it's not without nuance. We have a panda-style twin-register dial, which is nice and pleasing. You can see leaf-style hands and applique hour indices. We'll do a Lume shot right here. And you can see that it is a legible watch in the dark, though not the chronograph components. We've got a concentric pattern in each of the sunken sub-registers. You can see the watch is made in the greater metropolitan London area. So although the movement is a Swiss ETA, final casing up assembly of the watch was done in the greater London metropolitan area, and they would later set up a larger shop in Henley-on-Thames. The watch does include a hacking or stop seconds function. And we have a quick set for the dates. You can rapidly cycle that right there. The watch features a combination of a cam-based chronograph cycle, so you can see the cam right there, the start-stop lever, and the hammer for it. And then what's important here is because this is a 7750 architecture, and this is a chronometer grade 7750, there's a little clutch spring, and you just barely see the clutch underneath my finger. But it is an oscillating pinion lateral clutch, which actually creates a lot less startup, jump, or stagger. If you press the start trigger and hold it, generally an oscillating pinion, which has very little play for a lateral mechanism, will not have the forward jump of a conventional lateral clutch. So just watching the activation, it would be very easy to mistake it for a seamless vertical clutch. That is germane to all 7750 architectures. I just thought I'd shout it out because there are different types of lateral clutch, and the oscillating pinion is a neat one. This is clearly a movement that was ordered with the highest grade of finishing. Now it's mechanical finish, but it's also attractive. You could see Bremont specifying a own rotor or a custom rotor. Now it has a serial number. This is a chronometer certified movement that meets the ISO 3159 standards, and it is a COSC certified chronometer. So the thing is, to have a COSC certified chronometer, you need to have a seconds hand and you need to have a serial number, and we've got both here. 25 joules, unidirectional automatic winding, 42-hour power reserve, 4 hertz beat rate. You've got the stop seconds and the quick set date, and you can see we have both a micrometric index for small adjustments and an Edachron system for small adjustments and beat error correction. Another refinement to the 7750 architectures that has a semi-instantaneous jumping minute, which I always love to see. If you love this watch, like I said, this is one for the Bremont Old Guard, the folks who got the brand to the dance. Reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.